Welcome back, everyone. We are here for another week of story time with Micah. I have a new widow on the scene. I'm going to be holding this microphone because I can't find my other microphone. So we're just going to put that out there that we're going to use this because we're trying to get more quality sound control here in the new year. For me personally, as I'm stepping into these things, you don't know there's better until you get better equipment, Liz.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I'm here to say.
I wasn't sure. Okay.
Yes. So Liz Carman is here. We met last fall
Yes. In November.
at the Business Expo.
Yes, exactly.
And so she is new on the scene, new in our area, and I really felt like the Lord divinely connected us in November. Because the Widow Walk is putting themselves into commerce, into business type things, and one of those is the Business Expo, and that's what it was called that you came to.
Yes.
So that is with the Chamber of Commerce, and I've gotten to do that a few years now, and I'm always meeting new people that I really don't know if I would have ever met any other way. And that's what gets me excited about meeting new people. And Liz was one of them. And then she was able to come to our Christmas party and another one of our gatherings, right? That was later that month in November. Did you come to
No,
the
I
fire
did not.
department?
Oh, I came to the fire
Yes.
department. Yes, I did.
Yes.
I did. Yes.
So right away, she came to our support group, if you want to call it. And then we had our Christmas party. And so we are continuing to celebrate over the holiday. We did have to cancel our January gathering that would have been at the fire department due to the threat for snow and rain. It did come later in the day, but due to it being 30 degrees, we felt it was best to cancel for the safety of our members and anyone else getting them on the road. So, Liz, what can you tell us? One, this video is coming out right after Valentine's Day. And February has a big push on love, 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 hearts, 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 be my Valentine, all of these kind of things. And I just kind of want to ask a new widow on the scene for me. I don't know your history. I would love for you to share that here today. How long you've been a widow, any reflection you have that you'd like to share with those watching that are currently also walking through a widow's walk. Some of the maybe potentially now that you are a widow, some things that you weren't expecting in the processing of it. If you've been around loss of others and then you go through loss yourself, it's a very different journey.
Absolutely.
And so part of this blog here today for me is to continue to uncover and explore matters of the heart, to explore your perspective, to explore a little bit of how you got here, and what can you share, the good, the bad, and the ugly of this part of your story. So I'm going to give it over to you, and we will just kind of talk back and forth along the way on as you share things that resonate with me and things that I feel like are really a universal thing going on, even though it's very personal, your story. These types of feelings happen with many.
Oh, absolutely. And you just don't realize it.
Exactly. So what year did you become a widow?
It was 13 years ago.
Okay.
January 11th.
Okay.
Yes. My husband and I were married for 34 years.
Okay.
And he was sick all the time. He was thrown up. And he went to the doctor, and it took a while for them to figure out that he had cancer. And to this day, we still don't know what kind it was.
Wow.
It was cancer in the stomach. They think maybe his appendix burst, and the cancer just went throughout him. But it was one of those days. It was on April 1st, April Fool's Day.
Wow.
That the doctor did surgery to find out what was going on, and they came back to us and said, your husband has 3 to 6 months to live.
Mm.
And you see that on TV all the time,
Right.
but you don't expect that
To
be
happen to you. Yeah.
And so it was like
A sucker punch.
oh, absolutely. And I at that point I didn't know what to do. I just he didn't accept it either.
Mm.
And they wanted hospice to come in, and he's like, no, I'm not doing hospice.
Right.
That type of thing. Sorry. And so I said, oh, we should go to Hawaii. And he's like, no, 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 because he really thought he was going to beat it.
Okay. Good.
My daughter was going to get married in October. So when they told him he was going to live 3 to 6 months, he actually lasted until that following January. She got married in October.
Wow.
Yeah. So he stuck around for her.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's the will to live.
Absolutely. But I always felt like the doctor that we had, I don't know if he was good or not.
Right.
I didn't know if he was the right doctor that I should have went to, but I was working at a hospital at the time.
Right.
And of course I thought, well, the recommendation, these people, they know what to recommend.
Right.
These people are,
Yeah.
they know who they should recommend. And I don't think he was at the right doctor.
You hold this. You keep going. No stop.
So the doctor that we went with, he was an older man, and he was going to put my husband through this process. Like, we're going to do this type of treatment, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do this. So at the time, it was in September, and I didn't think that he was following up with what he said he was going to do.
Okay.
And so I said, okay, it seemed like he was doing better as far as keeping food down.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, let's go on to the next treatment. And it was after that he just really went downhill. So my husband had to have a port.
Okay.
He couldn't eat for the next, 5 months. He
wow.
So
feeding tube, basically.
He had a feeding tube.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's intense. Okay. Let's just put it that way, y'all, that when you understand that there's something going on, something's definitely not right, within our body. We should not be throwing up on a regular basis. And you think it's the stomach bug. You think it's something else for a time until it doesn't stop. And then you start investigating. That takes time. It takes time
Yes.
to get into appointments. Even if you think it's serious, the only way to cut through the minutia of that, I have found, is to go straight to the ER. The ER seems to run more tests quickly versus you scheduling to see the IG doctor or whichever one, and then you wait for that appointment, and then you get there, and then she says, now we need this appointment, and it's a whole process with all of that. And
Yeah, it certainly was.
and you were in the medical industry,
right?
And what is your position?
I work. I'm a staff assistant.
Okay.
So but I knew people within the hospital,
right?
Because you work in the hospital. Yes.
So she's not unfamiliar with medical language. So you would think you were on the inside. Yes, to be honest.
Exactly.
Right.
Because I went right to the director of the cancer services, right. And I said, this is what's going on, and he's the one who
directed you to that doctor.
Yes.
And I've heard this, with other people, when it feels like they pass quicker than you had ever hoped. Even if it was 6 to 8 months, that's overnight for us.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though I know it was potentially a grueling step process and all the things, it still goes by way too fast. And then you have these thoughts about coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Exactly. But I had that, and sometimes to this day I still have that. But I have to remember, God is in charge.
Right.
And
has that been enough?
Yes.
Good. Awesome. And, this is part of this grief thing where the last step, they call it, is acceptance. And I think that is a very subjective. There is no timeline on acceptance.
Oh no.
And what acceptance means to you, what does acceptance mean to you? Have you come to terms with his passing? Did you reconcile, if you want to call it, that the Lord called him home early?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you sometimes there are doubts. Doubts do creep up, but
Right.
overall, yes, I have reconciled with that.
Now, that part of it. Okay,
Yes.
so your kids were adults.
Yes.
And then what after, if there's more you want to share to getting to the point of the final law of the day of passing, is there any recollection you want to share about that window?
People just don't realize, like, even people close to me don't even realize what we actually went through with him being on the feeding tube, having to do
All the things.
the whole process.
And you learned how to do all that.
Yes, my daughter and I learned how to do that. And I think one of the worst things was sometimes we would all go out of the house, and we would be concerned that he would just pass away while we weren't there. So we would call and call, and he didn't answer the phone. So we would just like be panicked all the time when we come home. Are we going to find him?
Right.
Yeah. So it was in December. That's what people with Christmas.
So tough.
People always like, it's always supposed to be so special and everything. But my kids went and bought him a chair, a rocking chair, for whatever reason. They knew he was not going to be around that long, but they still wanted to do something special. And he always wanted a rocking chair. So he sits in the rocking chair on Christmas Eve, and then he goes and vomits all over it. And, so we had to go clean that up. But so my kids went to church that evening because I said to him, I'm going to go to church. And he just looked at me like, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. So I sat on the couch with him, and he laid his head on me, and he just sat there. And then they came home, and then the next day we get up, and he's like, "Is Christmas over?" And Christmas was over, and so his body he started shivering. So on Christmas, the day after Christmas, we had to go into the hospital because his body was breaking down, and we stayed in the hospital until January 7th.
Wow.
And between me and my kids, we would I hardly went home,
right?
Because even though you work in a hospital, you also know what happens in a hospital, and you want to make sure someone's there all the time.
You're right. You're right.
Yep. And so we would just take turns, because at some point he had to go into ICU because of
conditions.
Yes.
And this is a term I am using more and more in grief education, is even though for the participants here, they're in what we would call survival mode. You're just in there dealing with moment by moment things as it comes. If you're not in hospice care as your full-time job, knowing the process of your body kind of declining is not common knowledge. At least it isn't for me. And there's 150,000 different scenarios of how it could go down. And, the process of your body basically moving on, and the process of decline, if you want to call it, and really witnessing the humanity of that.
He was, I guess, because of the fever, he would be delirious sometimes, and he would just make jokes, and my kids thought it was funny, but we didn't realize at the time that he was delirious.
Yes.
And he was still on the feeding tube at the time. And then I had to make the decision to take him off the feeding tube.
Wow.
And so he had 9 brothers and sisters. They're not. They weren't in Kentucky. I'm sorry. They were all in New Jersey. So I says I have to take him off the feeding tube.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to talk to him one last time. So everyone called and said something to him over the phone.
Wow.
And my one daughter, though, she was a little bit younger. She was in her 20s, and she didn't quite
get all that.
She did it, and I think she, now she thinks about it, but I don't know. She didn't really stay at the hospital as much as my other two children did.
And to be honest, it not all of us can handle it. Okay. And then I don't want to say there's regret after, but I hear that a lot. And there's people that may encourage mothers and different ones encourage you need to come because you don't want to have that regret. But facing mortality is traumatic. And I have childhood memories of walking in to see my my grandmother in the nursing home. Mm-hmm. And I hated that. Like, to witness these older people kind of out of it, for lack of a better way of saying it. She had her mind, but I don't remember why she was there, to be honest. I was only 11 or 12 at the time. I didn't like the smell. I didn't like the environment. I didn't like seeing some older people holding baby dolls. Mm-hmm. Some were crying. I was like, this is an insane asylum, and it was a scary place to me. Therefore, if you think so, I'm just saying, for me personally, part of this, which is interesting, me working with this grief community, is really getting more comfortable with the process of dying, with our humanity is really the term I want to use, not pushing it away, and learning how to come closer to it. It's heartbreaking. It's heart-wrenching. There is agony attached to wrestling with letting your loved ones go. I use the word wrestling a lot. And that's an emotional term of this tug of war inside yourself. But also these decisions. There's no handbook for this.
No. And when I did finally say, take him off the feeding tube, the younger daughter, she did get a little upset with me because he was talking, he was talking, but he wasn't really
fully there.
Yeah. And so once I did it,
he wasn't that long after. Right. So this again, y'all, why we talked about this last month with Saritha about having a trust and a living will, that there are some things that help you in the midst, because this is my soapbox and I'm not going to get fully back on it here today. But what I say is, when you're in a sound mind, that is before illness, okay? Mm-hmm. That you really sit down and spell out how you would like to go. You have to face it. But not everyone does that, okay? But what happens is, then it puts it on you. It puts it on the other person who is in better health to make the decisions. And it doesn't mean she made the wrong decisions. That's not my point here. But the weight is on more of you, mm-hmm. because it comes to a point where they cannot help you make that decision. Is that correct?
Well, at one point, to be honest, the doctor came in and talked to him about the DNR.
Okay.
And he decided to have a DNR because of his situation.
Right.
So at least he was still at that point.
Yes, cognitive enough to make that. Yeah. And that feels very final, okay? Because there's many ways that you can bring the person back. They can do miraculous things in the medical mm-hmm. industry now and keep you keeping on. But ultimately, it comes back to the quality of life.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And why are we making these decisions? Because we know they would not want to be here without quality of life.
Right.
And that is really what a living will is all about, is making the decisions to preserve their quality of life, and maybe sometimes not extend life because there's no quality of life. Yeah. And that is I would say one of the hardest decisions to ever make.
Right. But he was, 200 some pounds, and when he died, he was,
Wow.
80 or whatever, So you just
Yes.
watched him shrivel.
Down.
He was never in pain, which is the one grace, God's grace
Thank
that
you.
we had. But he lost the hair and, 80 pounds, but other.
And so when you miss this person and you wonder, could another doctor have saved him?
Yes.
That is so real.
Yep. But
It's not what happened.
it's not what happened. And you can't go there.
No.
Because you would drive yourself
Crazy.
going back.
Right.
Back. Oh, I should have did this. I should.
Totally. But it's a real part of processing, y'all. Thank you for your honesty here, just kind of getting into it here. This is deep stuff. This can be messy. The messiness of life, it really has to do, grief and messiness are best friends, if you want to call it. And to be honest, I don't like messy things. And in my case, it wasn't that messy because it was over before I knew it was over. So this is why it's so fascinating to me to have these conversations about there being a timeline to the decline versus a sudden loss. It has different trauma attached to it. But when you're in there watching this and having to care in ways that you maybe when you made those vows all those years, 34 years ago, you say in sickness and in health, but you really don't fully know what you're agreeing to. Yeah. This to me is the sacred part. I mean, we have on our website Widow Warriors. Every widow who stands with their spouse and does the things that I don't fully know all that she did for the sanctity and the dignity of your husband is a warrior in my book. This is the bravest part of your story. I truly believe that, y'all. I believe that it is brave to step in, because I have heard of other stories where there was diagnoses and they got a divorce.
Wow.
Because they weren't willing to face it, whether someone was disabled or it was going to maybe be a 5-year journey or whatever. They couldn't face it and they left. And I'm not here to judge that. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But the more I have walked with widows, I said, man, when you're faithful to the very end, in the midst of hardship, where there's no reciprocity. What do I mean by that, y'all? She had to do these things as an act of love with nothing in return. He wasn't going to give back here. You had to sit with that. Yes. And in the past, when you're healthy, it's a give and take. You do your part, he does his part, the team keeps working, the household functions properly. But when these things happen, how do you take care of the household too?
Well, he would sit there. He would get so frustrated because he couldn't do anything anymore. And he normally didn't curse, but he would just
get angry.
He would get angry because he couldn't do something. The one big moment in the hospital when we first found out was he and my son were talking about baseball. We're just talking about baseball, and they're talking about, who's gonna be in the World Series, and me standing there knowing that he's not going to be here
to watch next year.
It was just like
gut wrenching.
Yes, I remember that moment in the hospital when that happened. And then, when after he died, I had a real heart issue with, what am I now?
Let's go there.
I'm no longer married. What does that mean?
Totally.
And I probably still struggle with that because, you're no longer married. You're a widow. You're no longer married.
Yep.
What does that mean for that family that you used to be married to as well? Because and for 34 years they were around.
Yep.
So what now?
Yep.
So it's been a process with that one.
It is also very interesting. I have heard very different approaches to that. Some kept their arms wide open, some shut the door very quickly. We don't have to fully get into that.
No.
But again, what I appreciate your honesty here, because this is another layer to trauma and what they kind of can call complex PTSD. What is complex PTSD? When something lasts for a period of time where like hardship is continuing to happen. It's a compounding of it. And so, yes, she had to walk through that 8 or 9 months with your husband, but that wasn't the end of the trauma. There's the after. Like she's saying, now you're having to relearn what life looks like. You're having to take on more responsibilities. You're having to were you the one who did the bills before?
Yes.
Okay. So that wasn't as much of an adjustment, right?
Yeah,
So for
yeah.
some, that's a simple thing. What about
Well, just
household maintenance?
Exactly, the household maintenance. I would have to hire
Call
someone.
somebody.
Yes.
All of a sudden,
And of course, you don't have that income,
right?
and so
So you're down in income, and now something that your husband usually could have handled, because it seems men are more built for mechanics, engineering type things. They're fix it people. I had one as well. We didn't pay people to do it unless it was a really big issue. And you're hoping that you're not having big issues because you're doing the maintenance along the way. So that's another trigger. It can be when something suddenly happens, and that has happened to me still. I've had some plumbing things happen, and it felt very scary because like it wasn't dire, let's call it that,
Right.
but to me emotionally it felt very scary. And then you're having to get someone and hope they can come quickly. I had my toilet was in the process of overflowing, and I heard it running longer than it was supposed to. Thank the Lord we were home. But I opened the back tank. Yes, isn't that what it's called? The tank in the back. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I'm blanking. And this thing popped up, and I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So I held it down, but it broke, and so thankfully, because I'm in real estate, I had a plumber's phone number who has helped me, and I said, SOS, I'm a damsel in distress. Something's going on here. This needs real help. And so a couple of things that I learned, that there is, and on our Facebook page we have the tutorial to show you what to do on this, but there is a gadget, and it's called something that is, I can't think of it now, but it's this bracket of this tool that Ace Hardware has for like $20 that you can turn your main water line off. Well, my house is old, so the water lines underneath the tanks are rusted. So I can't turn it off from the toilet, which would be the normal thing, the first step. So when you can't turn it off from the toilet because you're going to bust something else, then you have to know how to find the sewer line by, if you're in the city or out in the county. And the plumber basically told me that a lot of what he has to repair is because people did not have one of those tools, and it's running too long, causing a problem. I was home, was able to keep my hand on it until the plumber came. Thankfully, he was around the corner, stopped what he was doing to come over here, and had to turn it off from the city. Had the tool to do that, went to Ace and got the new piece, put it back on, no harm, no foul.
So we had a septic tank.
Okay.
And our septic, it started backing up into the house. And that's when I said, I need to sell this house. Because to pay to get the septic fixed would have been, I couldn't even, thousands and thousands of dollars. And I at that
Didn't have
point,
it.
I can't do it. So that's when I made my decision
Wow.
to sell the house.
Wow.
And it was about 3 years after he had passed.
Okay. So let's go from there. Very interesting. I didn't know that. I told her things are going to come out in the conversation. So what a turning point. Things started to break in the house.
Yes,
a big enough thing happened that she said, I don't want to move forward with this. I don't want to invest to stay
I
here.
couldn't.
Yeah. So sometimes we are forced out. And sometimes, to be honest, I think that may be the push we need to make a change, if that makes
Yes,
sense.
absolutely. And then that's when it so happens that my son-in-law got an offer at Huntington Ingalls in Virginia. We were in Kentucky. I'm originally from New Jersey, and I always wanted to come back to the East Coast. So my son-in-law got an offer, and I said, "Well, I'm going to go with you." So I moved with them to Virginia, and that's how I ended up in Virginia.
And you had just moved, what, September? When did you move last year?
Um, yeah, September to Franklin. I've been in Virginia for 8 years now.
8 years. Okay. But that was another part. You mentioned it, but I don't know that name. So what part were you in 8 years ago in Virginia?
In Suffolk.
Oh, in Suffolk.
I
Okay.
was in Suffolk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I went from Chesapeake. I brought something to Chesapeake, went to Suffolk. I moved
All over Hampton
six
Roads.
times in the past 8 years.
Wow. Okay.
And I just bought the condo this past September. So hopefully I'm gonna still be
So
there.
she's advanced in this. Okay. So I've never moved.
It's no
From my
fun.
parents' house to my husband's. One time we had a smaller house and then we moved here, but since all of that I have not moved. And this is fascinating to me to hear the journey of a widow walking through and having different moves for one reason or another. Now, who helped you with all these moves?
Movers.
Okay.
I had to pay movers because
Yeah. Okay. And that is what they're there for. And they can actually make the process simpler.
yes.
And
absolutely.
what we say is you pay for convenience. There is those who don't pay for things, and then you have to box everything up, find the boxes, go through all of your stuff, and that's painstaking in itself.
Absolutely.
So you've had to downsize how many times?
Well, I tried to downsize every time I moved because
Right.
you find out
You have too much
you
stuff.
don't need it.
Yes.
Right, you don't need it.
Yeah.
So
I'm still trying to downsize. It doesn't matter how many times I do it, still stuff keeps coming back in this house. It's just a weird thing. But obviously, we're consumers, so more is coming in. They say for every purchase, 3 things are supposed to go out.
oh,
I've never adopted that. I think it would help when you say like, "Oh, I got a new mug." Well, let's look at your mugs to see how many mugs are you not wanting anymore, and then you know what I'm saying. That's
Yes.
just an example.
yes.
Versus getting more and then just putting the other stuff somewhere.
In the
And
back of the cabinet,
yes,
right?
yes, the abyss of places. But that is, for some, decluttering and organizing. They love it. I
That's not me.
don't love it, to be honest. I love a clean house. I don't fully love going through things, and so my life hack is to phone a friend. Okay.
Well, actually, my sister came when I moved into this condo. I had totes and totes, and she came in. She helped me go through everything.
Yes.
Yes.
There's just something about having help,
Yes.
but also people who like that kind of work, if you want to call it. It makes it not feel like work. Let me put it like
Yes.
that. There's fellowship. I've had a lady come help me with my windows at times. We get to see each other. We're accomplishing something at the same time. You really don't always get that long of time with people anymore. So to say, hey, will you spend 6 hours with me, but we're going to do something at the same time? She helped me. We got to see each other and catch up. It feels like a win-win, even though she doesn't walk away with her windows cleaned. I am one of the ones who are willing to ask, but I really feel like there's something to remind you, the listener, the watcher, that your fun. Let me put it like that. That spending time with you is not a burden. Can we say that here today? That you asking people to help you, I would bet on this, that there's so many people that think of each other and have thought about wanting to help you, help
But
those
they
that
don't
they
know
know,
how.
but they don't know how, and they don't know when to ask. They don't want it to seem offensive to ask. They don't ask. So when you ask, it helps them because it was a really kind of a desire of their heart, but they really didn't know what. And if it seems like you're kind of figuring it out, you don't really need it. And that's been told to me personally. And so personally, I would rather you call and ask and say, hey, I have some time on my hands. Is there anything that you've been wanting to get done? That is a love act, y'all. Just so you know, for a widow, for someone to call us and say, you've been on my heart and how can I help you? That is the preferred language versus the widow having to call and say, I'm behind on something. I haven't been able to keep up with something. Can you help me get out of the ditch? Do you understand what I'm saying here today? There's a more kind, more sacrificial way. It is uncomfortable for the widow to have to say that. It doesn't mean that anything changes, but it means that someone's leaning into your story, wanting to help, then you having to, I don't want to say grovel, but I will say it feels a little bit more like groveling to ask for help.
Well, when we were in the hospital, um, we were the priest came in and we were sitting there eating McDonald's, okay? And he's like, what are you eating? And we're like, McDonald's. So he took it upon himself to find people within the church to bring us homemade meals.
Wow.
But we were not going to
Ask.
No.
Thank you. This is the spot, y'all. Okay. This Widow Walk Foundation, we are not fully here with that, okay? Because we can't be that food train for everyone. But if you will pick up this nugget that in your circle of friends, your circle of neighborhood, that we don't have to be the pastor to organize that. Any one of us can step up.
Sure.
And I think a lot of times we have expectations of who should be the one to step up. And when they don't, we're disappointed. Sometimes we didn't even think of it because you're in the middle of it. You're just trying to, get food, whatever. But when someone does something like that, it softens the moment. Does that?
Yes, absolutely.
It just lightens things up in the midst of you walking through hardship. And it makes you feel like you're not alone.
True. That people are actually out there, they care about you. And you don't get that because they don't want to come to the hospital. At that time, they didn't want to come to the hospital. They felt they were going to be interrupting us or whatever.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. So this is some of the human interaction that I feel like can get a little bit sticky. Like you're saying, none of this thinking is wrong. What they're thinking, like, hey, they want to give you your privacy. A lot of times you can't, in ICU, you can only have one other person to even come up there. Right. And, depending on what's going on, sometimes there can be intense things happening. You don't want somebody just randomly walking in on you. And it is frustrating. It can be frustrating, and they don't want to be a frustration for you. So then people stay away. But I am hopeful that as we navigate this foundation further, there's going to be more and more written publication of ways to helpful tips and little handouts to give your congregations of how to best care for people walking through hardship, whether it's sudden and you're just in the ICU for 2 weeks, whether I just think that we do really good, especially in the church when there's a new baby. When there's life happening, there are things in place. People are willing to help. There's more offering, if you want to say. But in loss, the consistency that I've heard is that really that first 2 weeks, month maybe, is when there's this volunteer offering. And then it quickly drops off.
I agree. Absolutely.
And I would say that that really we haven't even started to grieve at that point.
No, it takes a long time. It's process, and as you said, not everyone grieves the same. And even though there's 10 steps, they say,
right?
Well, you could start at step 6
Thank
as
you.
opposed to step 1.
That's right.
And now that I have this awful experience to go through, but now that I've had to go through this, when people lose people, I remind them of that because of what I went through.
And this is the compassion that widow to widow is able to give. The understanding, the hey, to let them know you're not crazy. This is not onset dementia.
That's true.
Because there is such a frazzle mentally that happens in the beginning, especially because there's a just you're out of your routine.
Oh, yes.
And fast things are happening. You have to make decisions. You have the funeral. There's a lot of fast, imminent decisions that you have to make that is not really in your normal routine.
No.
And so that in itself can bring on anxiety, can bring on doubt, can bring on the worry. I know some widows, to be honest, that still struggle being in crowds.
The going into the funeral home and picking out all that stuff, that was a tough one. That I lost it then. Like I'm not a crier, but I lost it when I had to go do all that.
It took me 3 years to do his tombstone. Just we never discussed it. I wasn't gonna just put it there with random things on it or his name and date and that's it. I didn't feel like that was all that was supposed to be on there, and I needed time to sit and really have a peace about what's to go on there because it's permanent.
Yes.
It's permanent once it goes on there. And these are the
and I never thought about that because like, okay, that's what we have is the dates and the cross, that type of thing.
That felt simpler to you?
Well, that's what I did. I don't know. It just seemed like that's what you do.
Right.
Because when you look at everyone else
yes.
around you, that's what it was.
Right.
The funny thing, if you call things funny, when I went to go pick out his plot, the plot right next to my mother at the time she was deceased was available.
Wow. That is so cool. That's cool. That's a God wink, okay? She couldn't make that up. She couldn't have controlled that if she wanted.
Nope.
That I like that. I mean, that makes me feel happy inside. And these are the odd things that can happen that kind of just I know for me, I feel comforted by that.
Yeah. Because when I go visit, there's my parents and there's my husband.
I mean, that's beautiful. And, like, not everybody gets that. That's a gift. That was a gift that she got in the midst of having to pick things out that she may have not been ready to pick out. It's a little laughable. Did you chuckle when you saw that?
I was just in shock, honestly. I was like, what?
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, if there was ever a question she didn't doubt where she put them, that was clear. And and so here we are. So I want to go back to you saying that your identity, there's a little bit of an identity crisis when you aren't a spouse anymore.
Right.
I personally experienced that also. And I didn't get to really share this with you and know that some of these things for y'all who are watching this are going to hear some things that I'm repeating because it overlaps in different conversations. But I sing at church and due to the circumstances of my husband's passing, we had additional services for people to come to grieve basically for some time after. That was not something we traditionally had done, but really it was the only way we could breathe. We set a time for 17 days after that from 5 to 6 or 6 to 7 where we came to church to pray because we weren't all okay with him when he passed. It was sudden, so our shock drew us to the altar basically. And as a church body collective, because he was the pastor's son, so it hit the top and it affected everyone else. So I sang more than I typically would. Well, by October of that year, he passed in June, I could tell something was wrong with my throat. and I ended up going to see an ENT, and I had nodules on both my vocal cords, and so I had to go on vocal rest, which is not talking. Okay, so that's a death sentence for me personally. So to know that in that short period of time, I had to, as a real estate agent, I had to refer my work out to another agent to help me close out my deals because I could not manage it all that at the time. I started to lose my voice. My singing voice was compromised, and I'm no longer a widow. I mean, I'm no longer a wife. And in 4 months, all of that happened.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
That was intense and a reckoning. Okay. And I was like, okay, I guess you can take it all, I'm going to lose, And so it was a very intense year for me personally with all of that. And I did have to really sit down. And for me, journaling was the avenue that helped me start to flush out my feelings.
I did that as well. Yes.
And to be honest, a lot of people say, you need to get in grief counseling and things like that. But I did not know anyone that I trusted in that regard. And there's a difference between a counselor and trauma counseling. That there's so many different facets in the counsel world now, and the type of care that some people may feel that they need. I personally felt like I wanted to hear the father's voice because there were too many voices in my head. And I didn't feel like anybody had the answers, to be honest. And that was also frustrating.
Well, that people told me after he passed that you need to stay busy. And that's all I did was stay busy, stay busy. And so I don't know if I actually grieved.
Yeah.
Because I was always finding something to do because I didn't want to
sit with it.
Right.
And that is so real. Okay. That is the, thank you for saying that, because I think people need to hear it. Busyness is a form of coping, is a form of escape, actually.
Absolutely.
There is a lot for a widow to reconcile with finances and their will and estates. There's so many things in the beginning anyway. So to just sit down and not do anything isn't really possible, to be honest. The more that you have written down and prepared, the quicker those things can turn over versus the
thank
other.
Goodness he actually wrote down
awesome
different things for me
you.
To know.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
And that's what I say, a husband set their wife up for success. That's when something's coming, even if you really don't fully know when. Did he have that prepared before he got sick?
Yes, I believe he did.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's a good man right there.
And I need to do that now because
yes, you do.
I just went on a trip and who knows what could have happened.
That's right.
My kids would have had no clue.
That's
right. So I have to go do that.
Okay, I'm encouraging you to get some of your ducks in a row because I've talked to many widows that the trip was the trigger to get it done.
Yes, absolutely.
And that was how we did our own, was a trip before he passed. So there are things that happen in our life that we think is for one thing, but it trips something else for something else, for a latter part of our story. And I will say that with the widow's story, for me, at least with my husband, I felt like that chapter closed. So the book that you were writing with your husband, in theory, okay?
Yes,
so this hypothetical book that you had written with your husband and your kids, and this whole story, the chapter closed.
Absolutely.
And then the question comes, is it a new book? Is there new chapters to this book? I personally felt that it was a new book. And I'm just going to let you ponder that. You don't have to answer that right now, but I'm just saying, as part of this Widow Walk Foundation, New Start, New Finish is saying you have a new start. End beginnings is a term I use a lot. There's an ending and there's a beginning. And that is up for you to decide when you want to really reconcile and end your association with who Liz was as a spouse, who Liz was as a mother, because once you become a widow, there's kind of a metamorphosis happening. Like you're becoming a new version of
Oh,
Liz.
absolutely. Well, you have to.
Exactly. And so to me, then that deserves a new chapter. Whether we were ready for that chapter to start or not, that's kind of not in our control, unfortunately. And it is, I call it an unraveling, because there's pieces to yourself that you really don't need anymore. Let's say the way you served changes. The way you served your family changes because you had a role as a wife.
Well, that's true. Yes.
And now that you're not a wife, your roles and your duties, if you want to say, may be similar with your kids, but there's a different perspective.
Yes. And they're adults, so I mean that's a whole different ball game because you have
Younger children. Yeah.
So mine were adults. Some of them were already married, so they had, it's a whole different story.
And it is still hard to lose a parent at any age. Is hard.
Oh, absolutely.
And did you have your parents alive when that happened?
My mother was deceased, but my father, actually, he just passed away about 5 years ago, and that's been really hard for me because he was my rock after my husband passed away.
Yep.
And now he's not there. And
yep. I talked about that when my grandmother passed. She passed in 2020. My husband was 17. That stung worse because the reality of loss was more real to me. The absence of the person was more real to me, and losing her too stung. It took the wound and just put the dagger further in. And I was angry about that, even though she was 90 some years old. Okay, so
well, my father was 92. Yes, but I think I accepted his more. It was God's choice.
Yeah.
Than
your husband. Totally. Yes. Completely understandable. And it is interesting. So there's something within our human self that we can more agree with their dying in their 90s. They've lived their life. That's a good life, okay? But then to be in your
he was 57.
57. That is, we would consider midlife. That's not the end of life. That's the middle of your life, or 3/4 nowadays. My husband was 43. So they say he was too young. And, this is kind of what comes to me, and it's not an answer I don't feel like people really like. I said, but even Jesus died at 33. And 3 years of service was enough for us to continue to tell his story. So if you want to talk about impact, it doesn't take 92 years to make an impact here. So my perspective is a little different. And I really, what I would call, got an eternal perspective on the facts, okay? And that's not to justify anyone's feelings. I was able to reconcile that in those 43 years, I had a friend in our church who was in our group, and he said this to me, and it actually helped me, and it was random. We were at the YMCA in the pool. All of our kids are there, and somehow he said, my father-in-law, he said he's a long-distance runner. He has since passed away, but he was. And he said, and my husband sprinted to the finish line. And I said, thank you. Like, man, okay, all right. Like that terminology hit my heart in a way to say, he still finished his race. Some of us are long distance runners and some aren't, and he never was a long distance runner. So to feel like he accomplished what he was meant here to do, that was a little bit later. I don't even know if it was the same summer or the following summer, but that language came to me in a casual way, and I was like, yeah, I like that. I think I'm going to adopt that. And you think we've kind of accepted it, but then there's a layers to accepting it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it does come in our own thoughts or through people.
Well, it's so funny. Facebook. I'm on Facebook.
Yep.
Yes. And when our anniversary comes around, I'll put it on Facebook, 42 years ago or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was in April,
Mm-hmm.
and someone just the other day posted or replied to my post from April, and I'm like, and she's like, "Oh, but you have so many memories," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I wanted more, But it was
Totally.
just so, you know, that just came out of nowhere, Like I said, it was from April, and it's January, and why are you commenting
Now,
now?
right.
Why? And then other people are going down. Oh, hugs, hugs. It's like,
And
what?
see, you needed to hear it now. You needed to hear it. These are the beautiful things here. Well, I I hope you've enjoyed. We have been on here 55 minutes.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
And I hope that there's more. There's so much more we could discuss, but I hope that this conversation here after Valentine's Day, we're here to remind you that you're loved and not alone, that there are these God winks all along the story that surprise us in the midst. And what I tell people is to just say thank you. Thank you for the God winks and to stay open to them, because a lot of people want to have understanding. They want understanding to why that happened. Right. And I feel like the understanding can get us stuck in the why, and instead of the wonder, to stay open to the wonder. And I feel like the story is more important than the understanding of the story, is what I'm trying to communicate. So her being able to share about this happening with um, her grave plot, being able to be beside her mother
and now father.
Yes, is a great thing. This is February. These God winks are part of the widow walk story. Every widow that I talk to has these serendipitous moments that come into your somewhere, out of nowhere, into your somewhere. And it's beautiful, in my opinion. It is grace, it is mercy, it is kindness, it is love. And I feel like a lot of times it's not always acknowledged as that, because you're just kind of in the moment. You're like, that was different. That was cool. And you just kind of keep on keeping on, is what I'm trying to say. But what I'm learning is that those are the moments to grab a hold of, to capture, to sit with, to say thank you, and to continue to stay open to the more goodness in your future days. To me, that is how you build resilience, and hope starts filling up your heart about your future days, having goodness in them, having surprises in them. I like to say they're gifts from above. And I tell people, I said, look, love never stopped when my husband passed. It just changed its form. Right. It's manifesting itself in all sorts of things, especially creation. For me personally.
Well, if you look at my grandchildren, the one looks spitting image of my husband. I look at him and that's him.
And so, exactly, my son has very similar mannerisms and facial features. And so, for those who for some, I know it can be hard because it's so in their face in a way that it can be kind of intense if they haven't fully reconciled. But for those who have reconciled, they're able to look at them with love, and they receive love in return from the pieces of them that's still carrying on. Right. This is legacy. This is how the bloodline keeps moving forward. This is the part of the story where I really want to tap into the widows, opening up more to the possibilities of the universe. I call it God versus the universe term. But the universe just means all encompassing, all the pieces, the sea, the sky, the trees, the birds, the flowers, the rainbows, the sunsets, that's just going to a random place and finding something that reminds you of that person when you're shopping. All of these different things, these are touch points. When you're a widow, feeling alone is a real thing.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not.
Because what you were saying
Go ahead.
about Valentine's Day coming up. I mean, like, I dread Valentine's Day to come. They already started. The ads have already started, and it's like I don't have anyone, that
Mm-hmm.
type of thing.
And I appreciate you saying that, because for you, we are having our second annual Walk of Love gathering to for this very reason, because I love Valentine's Day, to be honest. I'm not saying as a widow I love it, but the holiday before I became a widow, I liked Valentine's Day. And there's just more gifts, and there's fun gifts, and you can be creative. And yes, I do think as couples you should not only give a gift on Christmas and Valentine's and a birthday or Mother's Day. Not You should be giving gifts, little things, throughout the year, not just 4 times a year on the big holidays. That doesn't seem very personal. That doesn't seem very intentional. So I am saying beyond that point, gifts should be given. But in February, I spoke recently and said, how many people think about a widow for Valentine's Day? You're not, because you're thinking about your loved one who's still alive a lot of the time. I don't think most people are thinking about the widow on these holidays. We are not promoted in any of the commercialism of Valentine's Day. Let me say it like that. And so we here at the Widow Walk want to overshadow that and bring some justice, I called it in a recent video, to a gap in the market. There's a gap in the market to love on the widow and widower. And so we're doing something about it by having a dinner here at the Hubs Vine. We are getting down to the countdown now. This is in a week and a half. So you, by the time you listen to this, better have reserved your ticket. Liz has already got her ticket reserved. Yes. And this is to give you an alternative to dreading the holiday, so that you can come and receive and know that you're going to have a good time. Yep. There's going to be good food.
I've met some wonderful people through this.
And yes, we're going to have fun. And that is what Valentine's is to me. And I am working with the team, with the Widow Walk, to bring fun to you and spoil you a little bit, if that's a good way of saying it. And so that is what makes me happy to do for the widows. So when they tell me that they dread Valentine's Day, it makes me happy to hear that, y'all, because that means we get to do something about it. We are going to take the dread out of Valentine's Day and bring some goodness. If you want to be a part of that, I'm just going to put it right here. If you think that's a good idea too, we would love your personal donations. Some of you are giving monthly. Some of you give towards this event specifically. All of those things help us be able to continue to reach out to more and more people, to increase our numbers for this event, to be able to provide and keep it a free event. And so it does take money to do these things, y'all. And I am a businesswoman, and I'm finding people to work with me to help us execute that. I'm thankful to the community who believed in us and has donated. I'm thankful to the widow and widower who has believed in this cause and donated. So it is not too late to donate and give towards this cause. That means you're partnering with us. And the more partners we have, the broader that this cause can go, and more communities that we can become a part of and potentially share with other parts of Hampton Roads, North Carolina. And as far as the Lord allows us to go, to take a little bit of the infrastructure that we're still building here and be able to explain that to another town and allow them to build it there. That is our heart here, that this is not just for this little zip code, but it is for other zip codes, because I know there's other widows and widowers in need of some fun too. So part of this is to gather together and connect with each other. Another part of it is to have some fun, because some of our days aren't that fun. And sometimes we just need to get away from it all. And we want to be a part of that. And when we see you laughing and having a good time, it really does something for our heart. So I hope you comment below if you resonate with Liz's story, if you have experienced similar things of how she went through it. Can you comment below? Share this. We want to get the word out. The more you share this YouTube video, the more people get to see it in the Google algorithms so that they can know about it. I really want people in California to find this blog, okay? Not just people in Hampton Roads. We want this to get exposed to widows and widowers across the US. And how do we do that? With your help. So if you can comment below your thoughts on it, what more would you like to understand about the widows or widowers walk journey? If there's a widow or widower you know that you haven't seen on here yet, get in touch with us at the widowwalk@gmail.com. We want to meet you. Liz came to me. I will come to you. Real estate agents don't have a problem driving. So we don't want you to have an excuse about how we can connect. We want to connect. So thank you for watching. Thank you, Liz, for your honesty, your transparency, your vulnerability, your true truth in the story in the midst of it. And as she said, she's still becoming. And if you I just want y'all to put some encouragement below, because every time someone does this, they have to be brave. Most of them tell me, I'm not a speaker. I don't know what to say. I'm a little nervous doing this. I said, yes, yes, yes. And keep coming. Keep coming. It's not about us being good at anything. It's just about us sharing.
Exactly.
And this is like we're having a pot of tea and we're just talking. And by the way, I'm recording it and putting it for the world to see. That's not a big deal, right? Not a big deal. Not a big deal. So thank you, Liz, again. And see you next time. Bye-bye.